Hi, everyone. Welcome to the New Beginnings panel. It's actually the last panel before the award ceremony tonight. So welcome to all of the creators, and thank you to Mel for moderating today. This is a panel made up of pilot episodes and a short film. So they're all a story being told in a short amount of time and leaves us wondering what's going to happen next. I will leave you guys to it. Mel, you're up, and I will see you guys later and at the awards tonight. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Lauren. Hi, everyone joining us here today for this panel with these amazing creators. I had the opportunity to watch each project, and they were all excellent. So if you by chance did not get a chance to see them yet, make sure you do, because they were all very excellent. I am your host for this panel. My name is MelimeL. I'm a creative artist and mompreneur. I love being involved in anything creative. So you guys are my people. This is my kind of thing. I love being part of creative energy. So this is just really wonderful. Thank you to Lauren and the New York City Web Fest team for having me. And I am honored to be here with these amazing creators. And I guess we'll start by having each one of you introduce yourself, talk a little bit about your project, and then we can dive in a little deeper afterwards. Maybe Jon, if you want to start.
Hi, I'm Jon Massey. My web series pilot, Frank James, plays in the New York Web Festival. And there are, right now, it's a web series that I've only shot 2 episodes of, but it's a crime drama. It's about a detective who is on the hunt for this, to bring down this crime boss who he feels is involved with this murder of a young kid. And it's really a sort of a tragedy story. It's something that I wrote a long time ago. And it was started out as a feature, and then I made it into I wrote it into a pilot. And then I was been doing some scene studies with actors, and I wanted to do a scene study from this pilot with an actor friend of mine, Chris Muto, who plays Frank James. And we were doing the scene study, and he's like, you should do this as a web series. And I thought, that's a great idea. So I basically reworked it a little bit just to be able to make it into short snippets. And I was able to get the first 2 episodes shot and completed. And after that, then it was soon as I was gearing up to finish up the season, the pandemic hit. So we're sort of in that holding pattern before we can kind of get back into production. But it's my first web series. It's not my first directing outing, but the last short film I made was so long ago, it certainly feels like it. I just want to say the New York City Web Fest has been amazing. I'm really discovering all of these sort of festivals for web series and outlets that it's an amazing creative group, and really sort of enjoying it. And so that's sort of been my journey up to this point.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And then Shari, if you want to go next.
Sure. Hi, I'm Shari Albert, and this is Dr. Watson. He's the star of my film, besides the incredible actress Kelly Ray O'Donnell. My film was shot during quarantine. We shot it in August, and like late August, early, maybe a pickup day in early September. And it really kind of was born out of trying to remain creative during the lockdown. And, I've been kind of writing in a bubble. Oh, and there we go. All right. I'm going to put him down. And I wanted to create something that was tangible. And also, I've been very interested in getting into directing. This is my first attempt at directing anything. So, you know, I've been in front of the camera for many, many years, and then writing quite a bit the past decade. And, you know, I just felt like it was time to do something. I don't know. I think a lot of people responded to quarantine in different ways, clearly. Like, some people who I know are quite prolific filmmakers and writers, like, kind of just couldn't do it, you know, and they're all, which is valid, by the way, I think. And for myself, you know, I just really, I had an itch to do something. And so I wrote this little short, you know, love letter to the East Village, where I've lived for most of my adult life. And I've seen all the changes that it's undergone. And I just wanted to create a little ode to it. Along with, you know, I knew that if I cast my dog, then he would show up on time. And it was a real labor of love. It was just myself, my husband, my best friend, and some other friends. And, you know, we kept it small, and I'll go into all the COVID stuff later if there's any questions about that. But yeah, it was just like a sweet little film about one of my favorite neighborhoods in the city. With doing it with my favorite people. So.
That's amazing. And it's funny you mentioned, like, you know, when the quarantine and lockdown kind of happened, and like how some people responded better to it than others. So even for myself as a creative artist, so I like being very creative. My outlet is graphic design and also music and things like that. But it's interesting because I even experienced, like, for months actually, like, just no inspiration, no type of motivation. So I can definitely relate to the other, you know, the other people who didn't feel like that inspiration once everything kind of got shut down. So it's really interesting that for you it was the opposite. I think that's amazing. That's amazing. And your project, I believe, is the most recent out of everyone. So we'll definitely get to you about what your experience was like filming during COVID and everything like that.
Cool. Thank you.
You're welcome. So we'll jump to Heather.
Okay. Hi. So my project is called Breaking and Entering, and it is the pilot episode of a comedy web series. And it's about two personal organizers who are competing to offer their clients the most extreme and life-changing decluttering experience. So it kind of makes fun of the decluttering trend and women's wellness trends in general. And a lot of it is about control and trying to find control and take control over your life in weird and funny ways. And it's also kind of just about how, you know, we're always trying to fix something. Either it's our apartment or the way we look. It's like just being on this kind of quest to fix stuff and then eventually just like giving up on that in a positive way. You know, just accepting reality and finding the humor in things not being perfect.
Absolutely. It's funny. I was watching yours and I was laughing throughout the whole thing because like, you know, in recent years, there has been a move for minimalism and decluttering. And I'm not going to lie, like I'm kind of on it. I'm nowhere near like the perfect minimalist, or, you know, I'm still decluttering, but I found myself laughing a lot during your project because a lot of things were relatable. And it was also funny, like the extremes of these thoughts, you know, of minimalism and decluttering. So great job. I loved it.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, a lot of people have been saying they find it relatable. And to me, it's really, I mean, I was inspired because I got really into decluttering and I read Marie Kondo's book and I was driving my partner crazy because I'm like, why don't you want to throw away all of our belongings? And so... yeah, it is relatable for a lot of people.
Awesome. Okay, and then we'll go to Michaela.
Hi, everyone. Hi, I'm Michaela Zannou. I'm the creator of Couples Therapy. Couple Therapy is a pilot about a successful couple therapist in New York who treats neurotic couples while her own marriage is falling apart, and for the life of her, she can't follow her own advice and save her own marriage. It was actually inspired by some events in my life. Around the time I wrote it, I was coming out of a bad relationship, and I was mad at myself because I feel like I should have known better and not have gotten involved with that person in the first place. But, you know, alas, I did. And I also happened to have a conversation with a friend about her going to couples therapy with her ex-husband. And I just got this idea in my head about this couples therapist who should have known better and helps people with their own relationships, but she can't do the same with herself, which I feel like is the case so many times. You know, we give the best advice to our friends, but at the same time, we can't do the same for ourselves. And it's a commentary about, you know, modern relationships, and I really want to use this platform to give a voice to many modern relationships, such as relationships between gay couples, trans couples. I want to talk about the power struggles in professional and career-focused couples, you know, triads, just everything that's modern, and especially in New York. And at the same time, you have this strong but very complicated and very flawed female character that's just trying to free herself from all past trauma and move forward and find herself and free herself from toxic situations. Yeah, and we filmed before quarantine. We wrapped up filming around and post-production around January in 2020. And yeah, we only got one festival in person before quarantine hit. So yeah, everything else has been online since.
Yes, absolutely. And I like that you mentioned that your show touches on modern dating, because even now, you know, with quarantine, I've heard many people say that it's been difficult to date, and, you know, just the idea of dating like over Zoom is like a little odd. But what I liked about your show is that it definitely was very diverse in the sense of like the different couples, the different kind of relationships that exist out there. And again, like you said, how sometimes we're able to help others, but sometimes we're not able to help ourselves, which is quite interesting. And then you wear the hat of the therapist, which is like even like another level, right? Like people kind of expect therapists to know, like, maybe live perfect lives themselves because they have the tools, but you kind of flip that on its head. And I thought that was really, really interesting.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's talk about, you know, what kind of sparked the idea for your projects. And I guess we could start with Jon. Like, what was your initial, like, how did the idea for Frank James even come about?
Yeah, well, like I said, I wrote this a long time ago, and this will sort of date it, but I wrote it, I moved to LA in '91, and it was right before the LA riots happened. And so I experienced this, you know, in that time period, LA was a place that people didn't want to move to. You know, there was, you know, the gang violence, the riots, and so this story really kind of started off as a short and then delved into something else. And what I really wanted to do with it was you know, some of these you know, elements of LA as sort of a backstory to it, or a backdrop to it. But the lead, the detective, it's sort of a tragedy, and it's sort of I want to say like an American tragedy. And this is just the beginning of this roll downhill for him. And it's there's a little bit of a balance between whether you believe in fate or free will, whether you believe that your choices are your, you know, are you own. Are we all here in this group for a reason? Are we, you know, how did we get to where we are? Are those our choices, or has fate sort of led us to this? And so I really wanted to kind of, you know, it's sort of a tragedy in the Greek and Shakespearean sense. And I developed it into this feature film that I wrote, and it, you know, I put it around and you know, sent it out a couple of places, but I think it wasn't really something that there's a lot of sort of crime dramas, and people either said it kind of needs to go one way or the other, sort of a crime drama or this sort of tragedy. And I kind of balanced in between that, and I thought, well, really, I have to make it for myself, and that's sort of the impetus of making this was, it's kind of like, okay, well, if I'm going to do something with it, I need to sort of take that leap of faith with it, and there's a lot of things. It's hard with the web series to show all of these themes into it in the first episode. And so I knew going in that these first couple episodes were going to be sort of slow. There's going to be a little bit of a slow build to it. And, and I'm okay with that, because I know that that's where the story is going to go with it, to sort of that slow, tragic movement. And, that's sort of what it's about. And, I think some people are kind of getting it. It's kind of like this neo-noir that is out there now, sort of, the Drive, and there's, it goes all the way back to like Heat and Thief, Michael Mann kind of style. And that was sort of what I was kind of going for with it. And, and interestingly enough, now we're dealing with a lot of sort of the same issues that we're dealing with during the riots of '92. All this has sort of come back, and it doesn't really touch on police brutality or anything like that, but that definitely is in the story. It's in the backstory. There is, he refers to a kid in the next episode. He refers to a kid who had gotten, beaten on the street, by the officers, and now they're on trial. And so all of this has sort of come back around, and it was just really interesting that, I'm rethinking some things of it in light of everything, and in not taking, all these moments for granted. And, because even if you are writing something that is sort of touches on, very sensitive subjects, you need to sort of ask yourself, okay, what are you putting out there? What are you asking of these people? The kid who gets shot in the very beginning, I had initially wrote him as he was sort of selling drugs, but then I realized that storyline was not something that I could really develop, that could really show who he was. And so I wanted to change that so he was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. And, so those are sort of, there's a lot of themes that are going on in there that are just, I have to slowly start getting out. And, but I look forward to it as soon as we can get back to filming. So.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm glad you touched on, exactly with everything that's happening this year with the protests and, Black Lives Matter, because that's actually one of the things when I watched the pilot episode, that's definitely one of the things that came to mind, because you see, a Black boy get killed on the street, and you have police kind of investigating, what happened, what took place. And so it was very, very interesting. And I believe that, as creatives, like a lot of the times the work that we do definitely speaks to the times. And the fact that you're basing this on the 90s in LA, but yet it can still be very relatable to today, just shows like how as a society, in many ways we've progressed, but in other ways we haven't. So I definitely appreciate like that being somehow in your work and speaking to the times of today, even though in mind you were in the 90s.
Yeah, no, I think, I grew up in Atlanta where it was, many times I was the minority on the bus, so I think what happens with a lot of people is you sort of take that experience for granted, and you think that you're like, oh, okay, well, Obama was president, so we're doing good, and then it's all of a sudden like, hey, maybe you should listen a little bit more instead of speaking about these things, and so a lot of it was I did done interviews where people have asked me about it, and I feel like I want to talk about it. I wanted to include it in there and to not shy away from it, and where we are with the defund the police movement, and how we relate to that. And I think it's okay that shows like I don't want to say like the Dick Wolf shows, that they're taking a little bit of heat of what they're showing. I mean, I think you have to be somewhat responsible. You're still an artist, but you have to understand that what you're putting out there, how it's affecting people.
Absolutely. That's always the $1 million question when it comes to creating art.
Yeah. Especially something that's not, I mean, for a comedy, it's like, okay, you can make them laugh, but when it's dealing with very sensitive, but even comedy can deal with sensitive issues, and you can, it's pretty much across the board.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you so much, Jon. Next, we'll go to Heather. If you want to tell us kind of like the inspiration project, how did the idea spark for you?
Sure. So I really love women's focused wellness trends, and I also really love to make fun of them. I feel like I'm highly qualified to make fun of them because I've done a lot of them, and I've like dipped my toe in the water of women's wellness a lot. And I consider decluttering an aspect of that. And so when I got into it, I feel like I got really into it. Not that my apartment is perfectly neat, but I was just spending a lot of time doing it. I would spend like hours and hours and hours on one drawer. And I kind of had this feeling of like, oh, if only I could reach this place where my apartment was, everything was just so perfectly organized, then, I won't have any other problems in my life. Like it just kind of felt like it was substituting for like me dealing with other problems in my life. And I think a lot of wellness trends do that, and they can cross over into this weird obsession where you kind of just get like hyper focused on this one thing, and you think that thing. I mean, this happens a lot with like weight loss and our appearance as well. And I think also it's happening a lot with home stuff too, because people are putting more pictures of their apartments on Instagram, and everybody's like, I need more plants. Like I got to keep up with everybody and get more plants. So yeah, I just wanted to, write something about that. And I had a lot of different comedy ideas, but I wanted to write something that was shootable in apartments. So I thought that if I write this web series about personal organizers, then I can just keep it in apartments. But what ended up happening is that because the web series is so prop heavy and it's very production design heavy, it ended up being expensive anyway. So I decided to just take the money I had saved up and just shoot one episode and make it look really good and like hire a really good production designer, instead of kind of, if I had shot the whole thing, because I'd written 6 episodes and I really liked all 6 episodes, but if I had shot the whole thing, I know I wouldn't have been able to have it look the way I wanted it to look. So so now I have this one thing and we're trying to raise money to make the rest of it.
Right, perfect. And we'll definitely get into like budgeting and, all that, because I know that's definitely one of the biggest struggles for artists is just raising the capital so we can make the stuff, We want to make the stuff, but we need the money. So we'll definitely dig into that. Michaela, do you want to talk about the idea behind couples therapy?
Sure. Yes. Well, like I said before, it's loosely based on my life. I was going through a bad breakup, and at the same time, I happened to have a conversation with a friend about couples therapy and whether it works or not. So I just got this light bulb in my head that, I should write this story about this couples therapist. And what's funny is that in my mind at the time, I was like, I wrote like 5 or 6 pages. I was like, this is going to be, just a fun thing to shoot, because I'm an actor. I wrote, I produced, and I starred in it. So I was like, this will be a fun thing to, write for myself and have, good footage for my reel. And then I sent it over to a friend, and then she gave it to her husband, and he calls me and he's like, hey, Michaela, I want to direct this. And they had produced their own pilot a year ago. So they sort of brought the entire team that had filmed their pilot on board. And the more we worked on it, the bigger it got, and it got a life of its own. And we wanted to make it as inclusive as possible and as true and funny and heartbreaking as possible. So yeah, it started so small, and then it just got so much bigger, and it's taken us on this great festival circuit journey that we're in right now.
Awesome, awesome. That's amazing. It's always fun how an idea can like spring and just grow on its own. It's always exciting. Okay, Shari, tell us about your experience creating this during COVID.
Wow, that was something. I started writing this as a part of a bunch of other little short stories based on living in the East Village for 37 years, a long time. And I have grown to know when you're in one neighborhood, especially in New York City, for a really long time, you know everybody. Like, you know, I mean, I can't walk down my old block without, you know, stopping and talking to 10 different people, and then we end up getting drinks and all that kind of, and like, you know, and a lot of that just kind of stopped during COVID. But I'm jumping ahead of myself. But anyway, Will You Take This Dog is a part of about 3 or 4 other little scripts that I had written the outlines for, because my day job is writing commercial treatments so that's what I do for a living. And I hooked up with this director. I write for directors, and he wanted more dialogue heavy stuff for his reel. So I'm like, and he visited my neighborhood. He loves the East Village. And I was like, oh, I'll write that up. And it was like, and I whipped them off like really fast, which it's not usually like me. That's not how I work generally. And then he responded well to them, and he wanted to direct them. And except for this one, he's like, no, that's too much. It's very visual. There's not a lot of dialogue, and it's I have a lot of that on my reel already. And I'm thinking, well, why am I waiting for this person? And I love you, Ed, if you're watching, to direct my own thing. You know, like that's dumb. So I was like, I'll direct this, and then of course by the time I got my shit together, COVID had hit, and my husband and I decided to spend our stimulus check on doing the short, because this is something I want to get into. I'm expanding my skill set, be a quadruple threat, do it all, right? So so by the time we got it together, we were all ready. It was the summer, so people were out and about, but we wore masks, and I also, most of it took place outside, so I felt really good about that aspect of it. And we were a really small, teeny tiny crew. It was 6 people, and Dr. Watson and and my actress, and the other actors were outside. So she was the only one that had to do the interior with and by that time we had formed like a little pod. So we felt pretty safe in doing that way. And yeah, it was trippy, when because things change, like I got to our first location at 7 a.m. and Tompkins Square Park in its best times is not the cleanest place in the world. But when we got there at 7, unfortunately, because of COVID, I believe, and just because of the changing neighborhood, the homeless situation has increased exponentially. And as someone who's lived in the neighborhood for a gabillion years, I remember the Giuliani days, and Tent City. And that was like right when he got in and he cleaned up, Tompkins Square Park. And it was when we got there at 7 a.m., because when we scouted it, it was like 9 or 10. And it was like, oh, this is such a beautiful summer day. Yes, everybody's, outside, and New Yorkers are great. They wear their masks and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, when we got there at 7, I was like, I don't know what we're going to do. Like, should we come back? Should we change location? It was a disaster. We were calling it Garbage Park. It wasn't cute. It was upsetting. So, I mean, that's part of COVID, part of dealing with the reality of the situation. And, I was like, well, do we go buy rubber gloves and start cleaning this shit up ourselves? Or do we just, I wanted to live in the reality that we were in. So I wanted, by the time 9, 10 o'clock and we were ready to roll came along, people swooped in and started cleaning up the park. I mean, there was a pile of garbage. I'm only 5 feet tall. That was like up to my shoulder, no joke, like upon the entrance to the park. But by the time we started shooting, it was pretty much cleaned up. But it was trippy. It was very trippy. So.
Wow, interesting. And it's funny because I actually went to NYU for college, so I'm very familiar with the area and very familiar with the park. So that is actually very, very interesting. And it's not surprising that, with COVID and people having to be in lockdown and not everyone kind of knowing like where to go, like if you happen to not have a place to sleep and it's lockdown, it's kind of like, man, like how do you handle with that situation, when everyone is supposed to be on lockdown and quarantine? So that's actually really, really interesting. So I guess the next question, it could be for anyone who wants to jump in, because again, when we're creating art, right, there's always the notion of, okay, I want to create this. How do I start? We know sometimes it requires money. But maybe share like what are some of the challenges, if it's financial or not, or just getting your project off the ground. Because I know a lot of aspiring filmmakers, and they want to know, they have all these great ideas, but they don't know how to start. So maybe share like any challenges that you may have gone through in creating your project, or just in general, what do you find to be the most frustrating things about trying to create film projects? Whoever wants to jump in can jump in. Michaela? Okay, go ahead.
I can jump in. Yeah, I mean, especially for the filmmakers watching, I would say the first step would be to assemble a team. That's because you can't do it by yourself. It really takes a village. So I would say the first step would be try to reach out to your people, and they will reach out to their people. And before you know it, you will have a team assembled. This is what happened to me. As I said, I sent the script to a friend, and in like overnight, I had like a team of 10 people that were passionate about this project and wanted to make it happen. But at the same time, be careful with who you collaborate with, because not a lot of people are doers. There are a lot of egos in this industry. So just follow your instinct and make sure you surround yourself with a lot of people that are great and positive and above, like, will value the art and the project above everything, above their ego, and they just want to get the project done. They don't care about anything else. And then definitely money was an issue for me. I spent all my life savings pretty much on this. I'm originally from Greece, and all the money I had saved from like working double shifts at restaurants, I just gave them for this project. And I don't regret a second of it. It's the best thing that has ever happened to me creatively and artistically. But yeah, we had a lot of restrictions. We had to work on a very tight budget, and you can't escape paying your crew members, and you shouldn't. And so we had to figure out a way to have a location for free or for super cheap. And we really lucked out on that. We got 2 amazing locations, and friends offered their houses, and strangers that didn't know us were like, yeah, you can film at the bar. Yeah, I'm not going to charge you for anything. Just do your thing. Like, we got really lucky on that. respect. And we somehow managed to film 16 pages in 2 days, which is a lot for a low budget film. And we got all the shots that we needed. Yeah, I wish I could offer some advice for financing, but like myself, apart from like paying for it by myself, I don't know, perhaps you could collaborate with someone, like someone will give like a little bit of money and someone else will give a little bit of money or fundraise, but I honestly don't know anything about that. So these are my 2 cents.
Nice.
I'd like to pop
Yeah,
in
go ahead.
here for a sec, but that's so awesome that you did that. I'm like shocked you did that in 2 days, by the way. That's bananas.
Yeah, seriously, I was just about to say 16 pages in 2 days.
Like,
That's efficient.
mine was like 5 pages and we took 4 days. So, okay. That's amazing, Michaela. Shocking. And everybody's production value was so beautiful. And especially Jon's, like I was totally blown away by your production value. It was so beautifully shot and really just stunning to look at. For us, you know, we had our stimulus check and we pulled out a little bit more, you know, and we maxed out at like a little over $3,000, I think, for this little short film. But along the lines of what Michaela was saying, it's favors, 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 and more favors, and more favors. And just like keep asking people. People want to help, I find. They really want to be a part of something, you know, just everybody from our local wine shop to, you know, who else? My husband's right behind me. The coffee shop. Yeah, when we were sitting outside, when we were seeing them, and we just grabbed stuff, you know, like, and better to ask, you know, for forgiveness than permission in a lot of aspects. Like I went guerrilla on a lot of stuff, you know, if they weren't friends and like, you know, locals. I also, not this time, but the other project that I worked on a bunch of years ago was a web series that did not make it into the New York City Web Fest, just FYI. For that one, we raised $25,000 and it was, yeah, I mean, it was crazy and it looked good and everything, but you know, but I actually made the mistake of not directing that one. And because I didn't trust myself at that time in my life to be able to pull something like this off. But the point is, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter about the money. It doesn't matter about the budget. You know, you can tell a story, a beginning that has a beginning, a middle, and an end. You don't need the money to really do it. I think when all is said and done, continuity is a beautiful thing. People don't really care. Can they hear it? Can they see it? Is the acting good? I mean, that's really what it comes down to. And what I learned from this is to spend the money. I mean, I'm very blessed and I have good friends who work in post-production. So just from my years of being an actor and being on sets, I know a great sound guy. My best friend happened to like know how to color it. I was like, this is phenomenal, you know? But so I would say favors. Don't be afraid to crowdfund if you absolutely have to, although it's a very challenging time to do that with, you know, our democracy hanging in the balance. So, you know, favors and, you know, just really don't stress about the money. Just go out there and take your, you know, take your iPhone now, apparently like the newest one, whatever what is it? Like, who knows, a 12? I don't, I'm not up on this shit, but you know, it has like a gorgeous camera. So just don't let the money stop you. That's what I say.
Well, thank you, Shari. Oh, sorry, Heather. I'll just jump in here. Thank you about the production value. Yes, I work in television, so I've been a visual effects supervisor for 15 years, stunning. And I was a camera. Yeah, well, thank you. You know, I've watched all of the productions, and you know, you guys did an amazing job, even with the little amount of, you know, money that you have. Or Michaela, 2 days, that's amazing, you know, because that was a full-on show. That was great. You know, I think one of the things I always tell people is just give yourself permission to fail, because that's sort of I think people sort of get hung up on like, oh, is it good enough? I don't have this, I don't have that, I need this, and I don't have the money for that. Or, it's like, just do it. And, it's like, you have to be able to fail a couple of times first, and then, practice. I mean, part of this project came about by doing sort of there's a great book called Acting for Directors by Judith Weston, and I did a scene studies with her in her class, where you get two actors and you do a scene study where you're directing them. And that really allowed me to sort of practice directing, and practice to fail, and be like, okay, and she would tell you like, well, that was crap, or she'd give you constructive criticisms, and she'd have the class, give you constructive criticisms. And that was sort of, so I had the benefit of being able to do that with these actors, is do a scene study with them. And it was like, we were able to work some stuff out. But my production I shot it one day of a weekend, because I was working at the time. So I prep on Saturday and shoot on Sunday. And we did it over about 4 weekends. So that was my way of being able to also fund it. Like, okay, well, can I pay you next week? And I pulled in favors, and, so there's favors. You have to not be afraid to ask somebody, because what's the worst thing that's going to happen is they're just going to say no. It's like, or I asked a lot of people, professionals I know, who's coming up. Who do you have that wants to be a DP or has the stuff? My DP, I knew as a camera assistant, and I didn't know he was DPing. The editor, she was amazing. She was an assistant on a show that I worked on, and I knew I wanted her to edit it, because she always was really hard on me as a visual effects supervisor on the stuff. And I thought, you know what, that's who I want. I want somebody who's not afraid to tell me what's wrong with it or what it needs. And, so that's surrounding yourself with good people, as you said, Michaela, finding those people that, and not that don't have that ego, but will still be able to sort of, get your back or tell you when something's not working.
These are all such great tips. So this was my first project where I created pitch materials. And I don't always think it's necessary to have an entire pitch deck, but even just having a one sheet and having an image and then just a paragraph that tells you what the project is about. And then I had like my bio on it and my producer's bio on it. I feel like that really helped bring people onto the project, because I know when people reach out to me about something, I'm like, okay, I don't know who they are, so now I have to Google them, and now I have to figure out what this project's about. And then like just having an image really helps people visualize things. And I think sometimes, as directors, like we see it all in our heads, but not everybody else does. And sometimes it's like, giving them, just making it really easy for them and giving them all the information they need will get them to read the script. And then once they read the script, it's kind of easier and they like know more about like what you're about. But I feel like just getting all your materials together so that you can make it easy for other people to like know really quickly what you're about, what the tone is, I think is a good way to bring people on board.
Absolutely. You guys shared some really, really amazing tips and stories. And I know that, it definitely takes a village to create something as amazing as all the projects that you guys did for New York City Web Fest. So congratulations. And I know we're approaching the hour. I don't know if anyone watching has any questions, but please feel free to send questions to any of our creators here. And I guess I can, if you guys want to talk about maybe what was a moment in your creative career where you felt like, I've grown as an artist, or I feel like I've entered now a next level where I don't feel so beginner. Have you ever experienced like that moment where you feel like, you you kind of have some wings on you?
Right now on this panel, because I don't. It's not,
Nice.
This is not something I normally do. So thank you.
You're welcome. Oh, we do have.
Well,
I'm sorry,
I can.
Michaela. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was gonna say that I guess like making couple therapy was what did it for me. Before that, I was an actor. I've been an actor since I was like 18, and I was primarily an actor. And this project started as just something for me, for my footage, like just something to promote my acting career. And I had already started writing before, but I wouldn't call myself a writer before. But ever since couples therapy happened, I felt that yes, I'm a writer, and like I've written other things since. And I saw that I'm actually good at producing, and that I love all aspects of filmmaking, not just acting, but I love being behind the camera as well. And so, yeah, that was like a big kind of like moment of realization for me, and helped me believe in my capabilities, and see how much more I can accomplish.
Okay, great. So we actually are getting some questions now. So one of the questions is, are you working on anything now during COVID?
Well, I think, Shari, weren't you working during COVID? I'll just say that, right now I'm just working in pre-production, getting all the ducks in a row for the next 6 episodes. And that's only been, my day job on production, we're getting tested 3 times a day. You have to wear a mask and a face shield. I mean, it's a full-on thing. And Shari, when I was watching yours, I kept thinking, is he wearing a mask? Like, oh wait, this is shot during COVID. So that's it's a difficult time right now. But I think that there's ways to get around it. It's obviously Shari did, and but right now it's like pre-production, and like Heather said, getting your deck together. Getting that material together, that's all free. That's free time. So, that should be something everybody, should be doing for anything.
I concur absolutely about what Jon said. And, yeah, we shot through, it's not impossible, to shoot during COVID. It makes it more challenging in a lot of ways, but I always feel like, these challenges present opportunities, not to sound Pollyannish, because I'm not, but they really do present opportunities for us to dig into our creativity and to find ways to circumvent certain situations that may have felt prohibitive beforehand. I wrote 2 pilots during COVID, and wrote and shot this. So it's like, and again, please, I'm really not that, I went years with nothing, like years. So I guess like in a way I'm making up for some lost time, because now I'm way more focused on the writing and the behind the camera stuff, and getting my feet wet with directing. And like Jon said, I was like, what's the worst that can happen? Like, it sucks and we all have a good time, and we're all just trying to keep busy, and the actress in my my short, I met at auditions, and we became really good friends, and we did readings together for a theater company and stuff like that. So it's like, people want to work, so if you give people an opportunity to work during this time, I think more than ever, especially actors, we're always desperate, and I say as one of them, but but if you get a group of friends together, and there's definitely ways around it. I mean, Jon, it sounds like, working professionally now too, like when I'm writing my treatments for people, it's like I see what these production companies go through, and even friends who are working on pilots or TV shows now, like how they have to, they're in their hotels in Canada or whatever for 2 weeks, quarantining and all that kind of jazz. But I think, there are ways around it.
My day job is as a TV editor, so I'm lucky that I have been able to work from home. I work on a show called Worst Cooks in America, and they, have been able to shoot, so that is good for them and for all of us working on the show. And then I'm writing something new, and I'm writing it, like Shari was saying, just trying to kind of work with what I have, and I'm writing it so that it can be shot during COVID. Mostly takes place outdoors, and I'm also kind of learning my lesson from this last project, and this time I really am going to write something where I can afford to shoot the entire series. So, it's like every time you shoot something, you learn more, and I feel like you get better and better at knowing how to write things in a way that you can shoot it cheaper, and also learning how to shoot it with less money while, of course, still compensating everybody. So that's what I'm working on.
Well, I'm actually working on 2 pilots. One I've actually written and is almost done. I'm at the 8th draft, and I've also finished the pitch deck. So I try to use this time to create a good writing sample, and something that I think would be hard to self-produce, but it's something that I could pitch to a network or a production company. And at the same time, I'm also marinating this idea of a pilot for something that perhaps could be my next project, something that I would self-produce, let's say in a year from now, or something. But yeah, like Shari said, it's been a challenge for some people, and for me, I've had like times where I was super productive and super inspired and in an amazing mood to produce and to create, and then there were other times where I was just so depressed because, what's happening out there, there's so much uncertainty about what's going to happen with the virus. Like Shari said, with our democracy, there's just so much turmoil. And, we had another civil rights movement pretty much happen in the spring. It was just so many things and so much turmoil and upset in the world that definitely certain people take that in, and it's hard to create and come out of it. So, if anyone's watching this and they haven't been able to do anything during quarantine, that's totally fine. Just, surviving every day and waking up and taking care of yourself. That's enough. We have all this free time, but it doesn't mean we have to write the next best American novel. We have all this free time. Yeah.
Absolutely. All very great points. So for the last question we received, you all kind of touched on it a little bit, but maybe if you kind of want to summarize in a sentence or two. The question is, advice for new creators starting out.
I would say just to realize that it's okay if your project isn't for everyone, and that, there's going to be some people who are excited about it, and then there's going to be some people who are not excited about it. And I would say just don't worry about those people who are not excited about it. Really spend the time finding your people, finding the people who are into your voice and your tone, and just, work on growing those relationships. I think a lot of times it's natural for us to seek out the one person who's never going to approve of our work and try to impress them. And, there's always going to be people out there who you won't be able to impress, and that's okay. And you just kind of have to keep moving forward and find the people who like your stuff.
Yeah, and I just want to kind of piggyback on that and say I totally agree with that. And my advice is to believe in yourself and believe in your voice, because we all have a voice and we all have an audience. Like Heather said, we can't please everyone. A friend of mine always says we can't be everyone's flavor, and that's totally fine. But that should not stop you from creating. You will never please everyone. So believe in yourself, believe in your voice, and surround yourself with really good, creative people that share the same work ethic as you do.
Yeah, and you know, I also think people need to enjoy what they're doing, you know, because I know this is you know, it's you know, I've had a long career. I made a short film a long time ago, and I enjoyed it, but it was, you know, it's a really difficult business, you know, and you know, you can go out there and make whatever you want, but you know, those sort of expectations, you know, people want to, you know, are you going to put something out there and then Netflix is going to pick it up, and then you're, you know, it's like that's not going to happen. You have to just be able to enjoy it. And I feel like, you know, I always, you know, here I know a lot of friends who wanted to be actors, and they start acting, but really they wanted to just be famous. And it was like, you know, look, you have to just, you should be happy doing community theater in, you know, Duluth, Minnesota. I mean, that should be, you know, something that's okay to do. And I kind of feel like a lot of the web series and shorts, it's like, this is our community theater. We're doing this because we're passionate about it and because we enjoy it, you know, and so at the end of the day, once it's out there, if 10 people see it, I'm happy, you know, and I think that's an important thing for people to realize and to consider.
Just to jump on Jon's point, that's brilliant and so true. And it's like, you know, enjoy the process of creating something, and all of the crazy stuff that happens along the way, instead of letting that, you know, scare you. Take it and kind of, you know, figure out a solution. I mean, filmmakers are problem solvers, right? And you know, I know writing is problem solving, and filmmaking is definitely problem solving, and it's all about, you know, taking all of these obstacles and, you know, really using your creativity to find solutions to express, you know, what you want to express, and not expecting, you know, a result from it is to let go, rather, is another way to say it, I guess, to let go of the result of whatever happens, because, you know, as an actor a million years ago, I mean, I've been in things that I never thought, and I did them to gain experience in front of the camera, and then it ended up winning Sundance. So it's like, what? Like, it's crazy what the kind of stuff that can happen, but it's like trying to make a viral video. Like, you can't set out to make a viral video. It either goes viral or it doesn't. So you have to do it, like what Jon was saying, for the sake of being creative and for the sake of doing it, and stuff like this kind of panel is just the icing on the cake.
Amazing. Thank you, everyone. You guys
Thank you so much. That's the perfect ending to
the
stuff like this panel. No, it's great. I just want to thank Mel for moderating. I appreciate that. I know we brought this on last minute for you as a moderator, so I appreciate you doing all that research and reaching out to the panelists. And thanks to all of you guys. It's a real inspiration. Oh, what just happened? It just froze.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Good luck.
My computer just froze. Thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.